and we're back with Professor Alton and Professor Bosworth, and we're describing what the Bronx is all about historically and in terms of the numbers, the demographics. Professor Bosworth, thank you for joining us again. When you joined Professor Alton a second ago, you made a very interesting observation about what he had been saying in terms of history. Please tell us about, just your reaction to what you heard Professor Alton was just saying to us.
Well, the reaction, of course, was awe at the
knowledge, right?
The knowledge that he has, and also awe at the number of events that have happened in the Bronx and because of the Bronx. And it led me to think that, in effect, the Bronx also has an even larger purpose and has always had a larger purpose. The Bronx has been a place where people have come, usually, I guess, historically, not just off the boat. The Bronx has been, in a sense, a step up, but it's been a step up for people who want to continue to step, who want to continue to progress. And they have used their position in the Bronx, they've used the kind of space they've gotten in the Bronx, the extra breathing space perhaps that they had. They've used the educational opportunities that they got in the Bronx, and of course the economic benefits they got in when they lived in the Bronx.
But does that mean
rise up the ladder?
Does that mean they move out of the Bronx as well?
And
sometimes?
the fact is, historically, that's what they've done. So you really don't have the kind of 10 generations of families that you see in so many parts of the United States or of most other countries. And in a sense, that's one of the, again, unique and peculiar features of the Bronx.
So it's always in flux.
Yeah.
You just take a look at what was said about the Hispanic population of the Bronx. Originally, the very first large numbers of Hispanics were the Puerto Ricans, and now the Puerto Ricans are declining because they have moved up the socioeconomic scale and they're moving out into the suburbs, which is what the Irish and the Italians and the Jews who had preceded them have done.
Very interestingly, they're moving not only to the suburbs of New York, they're moving to Orlando. And there's a huge Puerto Rican community in Orlando, to the point where they called me recently and they said they wanted a copy of this program so that the Puerto Ricans from the Bronx can see this program in Orlando.
Well,
how many there are over there.
Well, I always call Florida the South Bronx.
Yeah. Okay.
But the thing is that as the Puerto Ricans are declining, as was said, you have the Dominicans and the Mexicans coming up. So again, it's a situation that is replicating itself over and over and over and over again.
But there may be some differences now,
Sure.
And this I think is something that we really have to look carefully at. Up until World War II, at least, when you came to this country, you came forever. You made one trip, it was to this country. You didn't think about going back. You especially didn't think about going back and forth and spending summer vacations or 2-week holidays in your old home. People from the Dominican Republic or from Puerto Rico or from Jamaica can do that and do that now. You have a kind of ebb and flow which is a little bit different from past generations.
Not only that, but their money is not all spent in the Bronx because a lot of it goes back to their family back in South America.
But that's not unusual because when the Italians first came here, they were dirt poor, literally dirt poor. They came, as a matter of fact, that was part of the Italian welfare system. Basically, the idea is we don't want to take care of the people who are poor, so we'll dump them in the United States. We'll give them the passage over here. And basically what happened is that the family came here and then they would send money back to Italy, and eventually the entire village would come over and reconstitute itself here. So when you're talking about people who were Dominican and Mexican doing that sort of thing, that also has been done in the past.
History repeating itself.
I always say the muse of history burps every once in a while, and that's it. So history does repeat itself.
I think that this is particularly true now when you look at Dominicans and Mexicans, not just in the Bronx, but around the rest of the country. That is to say, you have certain parts of the United States where people are not only from Mexico, but from a certain part, maybe even a certain village in Mexico. The same thing for the Dominican Republic. One of the problems is when you combine this kind of parochial living together with the idea that you didn't come here once without the possibility of going back home. You can go back home every year. You don't have to bring your family here permanently. You can bring them here to visit. You can go back. You could ultimately look forward to retiring.
But is that good or bad for the borough?
Well, one of the problems that develops is a lack of permanent identification with here. And the here is not just the Bronx, the here is America. Sometimes it means that you don't have the same motivation, let's say, to learn English well. We have a very large population in the Bronx of what you call language isolated families, families where no adult speaks English well. This creates problems, particularly problems for those families. You can't get ahead very far in America if you don't speak English well.
So when you have a community where everybody speaks a foreign language, it makes it worse because there's no need. Some people feel that there's no need for them to learn English language.
You know, as part of that, you know, in the old days when you traveled by boat and it took, you know, ages to get back and forth across the Atlantic, you know, you never saw your family again. You knew it when you left. You never saw Mama and Papa again. You were here, and there was the urge to try to assimilate, to try to become American. With the current possibility of traveling back and forth by airplane, which is, you know, just hours, you're constantly reinforcing the old country's culture. And when you talk about diversity, it's not quite the same as the diversity in the earlier days. When, okay, so you have Italians, they eat certain kinds of foods and they have certain kinds of festivals and all of that, but it's a much deeper connection with the original culture than ever existed before. And that may be a problem. I've always said it's wonderful to celebrate our diversity because that's one of the things that makes us unique. But at the same time, we also try to find out and also to celebrate what makes us Americans. What do we share? What do we have in common?
It's more than anything else, our values. Isn't it?
Exactly. Exactly.
Well, I'm not sure I completely agree with all this, though. It seems to me that you can keep your diversity. You can have your cell phone connection every day, and you know, more and more people, probably a majority of people, do now with people in your former country, and therefore you can sort of psychologically remain very closely attached to them. But the real question is, are you going to remain here? Are your kids going to remain here? If you are, sooner or later, you or your kids are going to learn English and are going to speak English like everybody else who was born here. And whether or not you have a deep attachment to a foreign country, I think, is not only irrelevant, but in fact is probably a plus. The real problem is people who don't feel this attachment, who say, I'm here to make a pile of money for 5 years, and then after I make the money, I want to go back home, build a house, and retire there. So therefore, there's no reason for me to have this permanent attachment to America. That, it seems to me, is the problem. I think it's a very good idea to have people who have this very deep and continuing cultural link to some other community. It's great for America, but they've got to have also a deep cultural link to this country.
Right. Listen, it's been a real pleasure having both of you on the program. We have to do this again. I wish we would have had a 2-hour show instead of a 1-hour show, because I could have gone on for a long, long time with both of you guys. You guys didn't even meet each other until tonight, right?
That's correct.
So it's a pleasure that I got you both together, because I think that both those two minds that I have in front of me can really produce a lot of really good work for the Bronx. And I congratulate both of you for a lifetime of giving to our community in terms of demographics and history. And again, we'll have you back soon. If you'll have us, we'll have you again on the program very soon.
Very soon. We're both very old.
Thank you. Pleasure having you both. We'll see you soon on another edition of the Bronx Journal.